Worldwide movement, peace, love, respect. Big King Sadiq hollering at you one more game. Steelers Nation, thank you for joining me one more time. Welcome to week three. Man, we made it to week three already, folks. Week three, Steelers game prep. All right, your host, one more again, Big King Sadiq. Just a guy with a few notes and a few thoughts to getting us prepared for week three. Man, celebration. Celebrate good times. Come on, 2-0. Starting the season 2-0. Folks, we need that, and we got it. Nice performance last week. The Steelers heading up into Denver and not allowing the altitude to be a big issue, right? And securing victory with an excellent defensive performance once again, shutting down the rookie quarterback Bo Nix, right? And really just controlling the game with the defense, particularly the defensive front. But then again, excellent contribution from the secondary, shutting everything down and coming away with 2 picks. So, man, excellent defensive performance all around. The offense took care of their business, right? Ran the ball once again. The Steelers, by the way, so far this year are number one in carries in the league. If you didn't know, we're serious about running the ball, right? Shout out to Najee Harris and Jalen Warren starting to pick up his time in terms of numbers of carries and involvement overall in the offense altogether. So, man, great job. Shout out to Justin Fields holding it down once again, taking care of the ball, no turnovers, got himself a touchdown pass in the first touchdown catch for my man, Big D Washington. True indeed. Darnell Washington getting his first touchdown catch. So that all was exciting. Excuse me. And man, we're trending in the right direction. Again, securing victory. Moving into week three, man, you got to be excited. True indeed, you got to. If not, I'm excited for you. I got enough for both of us, for all of us. True indeed. But Steelers Nation, I know y'all gonna be rocking for the home opener, right? The Steelers did all this coming back 2-0 on the road, 2 road games, which is a great way to start the year. Of course, we super value any road victories, right? So that's magnificent that they did that. We're off to a great start. Um, we celebrate the victory last week. Hold on. I owe one. Last week, folks, please forgive me. Special shout out to and apologies to our punter, Mr. Corliss Waitman, who I don't know what I called him exactly last week. If it was Corliss Williams or whatever I said, my apologies, please, again. And shout out because he came in and did more than serviceable job so far. So it looks like we're in good hands, and in that aspect of the special teams, the punting game, going to be held down. It was held down admirably to be thrust into action the way it was by Mr. Waitman. So thank you once again for your performance. And excuse me for not giving you your proper shout out name wise last week. All right. So rolling right into this week, man, you got to be excited about this week. First of all, again, the Steelers coming on home, right? Bring it on back, right? bringing it back home, and man, they gonna be rocking, I'm sure, down at Acrisure Stadium. I got a cousin and a few other folks that I know will be in attendance during their part to get it rocking and rowdy down there at Acrisure. So Steelers Nation, I already know y'all fitting to show up and do your thing down there. All right. So again, I'm just a guy with a few thoughts and some notes to get us prepared, right? For this game, to know what to expect, what to look for, what this matchup actually looks like as we welcome the San Diego in our way, in the Steelers way, right? As we welcome the San Diego Chargers into town this week. And man, this is probably going to be in just about every phase of the game the Steelers' toughest test so far, right? First of all, one of the things that I know from listening to the folks on their side, right, over in San Diego, that they are extremely excited about their change in coaching staff, right? Um, you know, the, they felt the general census, right, around town there in San Diego seems to be that the previous coaching regime, we won't throw anybody under the bus, definitely left a lot on the table and did not get the best out of a very talented young team, especially having with many consider to be a top five quarterback talent in Justin Herbert. So, with no further ado, I guess that's where we'll start in the new coaching regime in San Diego under a familiar name and face in Coach Jim Harbaugh. Of course, we're uh, incredibly, intimately familiar with his brother John Harbaugh, coach of the Baltimore Ravens, and should be also very familiar with Jim Harbaugh as a quarterback in the National Football League. Those of you who've been watching the Steelers for a while, like myself, certainly remember him with the Colts, nearly thwarting our bid for the Super Bowl when we went to go and play against the Dallas Cowboys. And I ain't gonna get into that too much how that went. But anyway, Jim Harbaugh certainly has been an excellent head coach as well. Became a National Football League head coach of the San Francisco 49ers and took them right to the Super Bowl against his brother, John Harbaugh, a few years back, and has since gone on into the college ranks and took Michigan all the way up and to the top and won a national championship with them last year. So we're talking about a coach who's serious about, knows about, and is excellent in the realm of winning football, right? So we talking about an excellent coach over there who brings along with him an excellent staff, right? First of all, starting off on the offensive side of the ball, as offensive coordinator is none other than Greg Roman. We already talked about ties to the Baltimore Ravens, and we'll hear more of them, right? And certainly one of the biggest ones is their offensive coordinator, Greg Roman. We know to be an excellent offensive coordinator, especially when you're talking about developing a power run game, right? And, he's had great success in that area against the Pittsburgh Steelers in the past, right? Has had several games in which we would like to take another bite off of that bone and do a lot better in defending in the run. So um, already there's an upgrade there with Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman, two great football minds together. Um, and Jim Harbaugh certainly brings that very serious intent to run the football and establish a power run game. That's how he won a national championship with Michigan. When he was in San Francisco, they had a powerful run game. So he brings that pedigree and that intent with him for sure. And with an offensive coordinator, the likes of the mind of Greg Roman, we know that he most likely would deliver on that. And so far, folks, that is exactly what they have done. They're right behind the Steelers um, in number of carries and actually have been a little bit more productive in terms of yards and yards per carry than the Steelers have been so far. So they have been excellent in getting Jim Harbaugh's and certainly Greg Roman's style of football implemented in this offense already. It has shown up big time, and their identity you don't have to guess about. Justin Herbert has been throwing the ball a lot less than you would typically have likely seen from him in the past, but has still, shown his incredible arm talent in opportunities to certainly throw touchdowns or windows to get the ball downfield when they do decide to go into the passing game. Um, you might not necessarily say that they have, eh, wide receivers that would blow you away, right? But they certainly have some very competent guys there. Not stars at all, right? But definitely very solid players, really capable of making plays. And their standout is probably Joshua Palmer. So um, watch him to be a very viable, eligible, as Coach Tomlin would say, in terms of the wide receivers. And Justin certainly very adequate in getting him the ball. Just last week, Justin Herbert, while again, as I referenced that he's throwing less, tossed a couple of touchdown passes last week, right? So he's still very dangerous in terms of his incredible arm talent, right? I mean, you're talking about a quarterback who has demonstrated so far in his young career a seriously uncanny ability um, excuse me, folks, a seriously uncanny ability to deliver the football from just about any launch point, right? Any body position, which we see as a trait that you notice in the really top notch quarterbacks in the NFL these days, and he most certainly has that. While at the same time being a very tall quarterback, I believe it's 6'5", solid frame, and folks, a very good runner at his size, a very good running quarterback. I don't know if you remember, I believe it was the very last time the Steelers faced Justin Herbert. In fact, he lit us up for like 90 yards rushing. Okay. So Justin Herbert is indeed a dual threat. And in terms of his arm talent, we're talking about elite arm talent. So, you know, he, from the quarterback position, most certainly. I mean, you can argue Kirk Cousins, but we think that likely he wasn't 100% when he faced the Steelers. Certainly, at least wasn't deployed in typical manner if he would have been 100%. So we might have caught a little bit of a break, excuse me, with Kirk Cousins. But I would just sum all that up and saying that Justin Herbert this week is most certainly going to be their toughest out and their most difficult challenge from the quarterback position um, so far in the short season. It's only week 3, but definitely so far this is their biggest test in that regard. So I can't say enough about Justin Herbert as being a top-notch young quarterback. He just is that, right? So we cannot underestimate him, and I'm certain the Steelers coaching staff will not, right, underestimate him at all. So I mentioned his wide receivers again, not necessarily going to wow you, right? But they are both very competent, solid players, and again with Joshua Palmer as the standout. But his tight ends are both really pretty good in both things, right? They're both very willing blockers and very capable eligibles. Again, taking the Tomlinism, right? Um, and Hayden Hurst has got to be the standout there. I mean, this guy, if the Steelers don't pay attention, he's one of those tight ends that, in my opinion, is really good in the sort of detach and release, that late leak out. You know what I mean? He'll engage in a block, and then late in the down leak out, right? And be very dangerous in that regard. Of course, and also some routes where they're going to deploy him down over the middle of the field as well, particularly if they feel like they've got the run game going good and got us softened up in the middle, so to speak, right? Then look for them to be trying to establish Hayden Hurst across the middle of the field. But again, and I know the Steelers coaching staff ain't sleeping on this, right? But don't do it. And just in case, one more mention for Big King Sadiq in Steelers game prep that we gotta be paying attention to that. That this dude, especially with Herbert's uncanny, again, I call it uncanny because the guy's a big quarterback, right? He's a kind of, you look at him and you think, well, this dude's kind of lanky, you know what I mean, a little bit. And you might not think he is as athletic as he is and good at extending the play. And then if he decides to run, I already told you, this dude is dangerous in picking up yards on the ground. Having already had a game where he hit us up for almost a buck, right? 90 yards. So we got to be very alert in watching. That could end up being a low-key kind of big area or key to the game to watch. If we can control that, with our linebackers, particularly, I would say Patrick Queen is probably someone we're going to lean on, at least experience-wise, to be watching for stuff like that. I'll be looking for that because, yeah, man, Hayden Hurst can hurt you, particularly if you lose track of him and he detaches late in the down on you. So we got to just watch that. And if we control that, or maybe even might have opportunity for a splash play there, knowing that. If it goes down like that, right, slide a little credit your man Big King Sadiq's way. All right, so anyway, get back into the San Diego Chargers offense. Man, you gotta say so far that the strength of their offense in terms of being able to develop the identity that we know Coach Harbaugh wants to get across, and certainly Greg Roman as well, is their offensive line, right? And I won't sugarcoat it. They have a very good offensive line, right? Young, particularly on the tackles, just like us, right? But their tackles have really come through so far. Well, they have one rookie tackle, and the other one's uh, Rashawn Slater, who is the veteran. He's good. You know, he's good. He's certainly more than serviceable. Um, and the young guy they got, their rookie, uh, Joe Alt, so far has been uh, not only all he was built up to in drafting him, but maybe exceeding that because he's really shown up very well against some top notch talent, particularly um, week one against Max Crosby. Um, we recognize Max Crosby to be certainly one of the best and most dangerous, um, pass rushers, edge rushers out there in the league, and he kind of stonewalled him a little bit, right? Um, so that's high marks, right? High praise, and he earned that so far. So still his biggest test going up against Mr. Watt. Because there's nobody better in the game. But I'll get to that in a minute. We all know that already. But yeah, man, it's really going to be the focus of their offense, the push that their line gets in the run game, and certainly they've shown up to be more than adequate in their pass blocking. Um, but yeah, in terms of how they grade out, PFF grades and all that, um, their tackles have graded out the best. I actually had it up here, and overall they were like an A group. Um, so far in the first 2 weeks. And they faced, again, the Raiders and Carolina. Um, you know, Carolina, if you're going to pick out a strength, you would say it would be their defense, although they haven't necessarily wowed anybody in that category either. But still, he did very good against Max Crosby, so that's notable. Now, while the tackles are their strength, the interior of the line has not just did suck. I mean, they've just been totally. They're not bad. In other words, their center, I believe, actually has graded out like ninth in the league so far. So he's um, pretty solid as well. Um, Bozeman, Bradley Bozeman. So, you know, him head to head against Benton. Yeah, man. Nice matchup. Nice matchup. And I believe in Benton, man. And he's shown out to be. I'll get on that again in a moment. But anyway, the center is pretty good, and the other two are not slouches either. But certainly, if you were going to nitpick and find a weak spot on the line, it would be their guards, Zion Johnson and Trey Dipkins. But um, again, they're not bad, right? Um, but if there's an area where maybe the Steelers could have a matchup, advantage on their line where they could look to get a little bit more push maybe than some of the other areas, those would likely be it, right? Um, I would also say that in general, though, again, this group has proven to be really cohesive, right? And for it to only be week 3, so far they've already demonstrated more cohesion on their offensive line, quite honestly, than the Steelers have on theirs. Just keeping it real. Excuse me. So really on the whole, they're just a really tough group. Um, Particularly on in run blocking, they have been effective. Um, very effective in opening up holes for a couple of guys that we should be familiar with. Very much so, and maybe to our chagrin, because both of these guys have seen their share of success against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that would be one Mr. J.K. Dobbins and Mr. Gus the Bus Bradley, right? Um, Man, the Gus Bus has done some power running against us in his day, right? In the Greg Roman system. And J.K. Dobbins has lit us up for some um, fairly prolific games, right? And so far this year, y'all, he's really doing his thing. I think just last week he had like 140 yards rushing. Okay, so their run game is a threat. We cannot allow these guys to get off, because when that happens, it opens up the rest of the offense and makes um, the other eligibles that much more dangerous, right? So, yeah, man, J.K. Dobbins has, as a Raven, enjoyed some healthy days against the Steelers that we'd like, I'm sure, another whack at, and they're going to get him. They're going to get him because, like I told you, the Chargers run the ball. The only team in the league that runs, I believe I'm correct in saying this, the only team in the league that runs the ball at a higher clip is the Steelers. And the Chargers have gotten more yardage and a higher yards per carry than the Steelers have. So their running game is a serious threat, right? So man, J.K. Dobbins and Gus Bradley as a 1-2 punch is extremely effective. You got a power back, and you got, it's much like our system, right? With Najee and and Warren. And like I said, so far this year they've been more effective. So we have to. Now they haven't faced the Steelers D, of course, but they have been really, really dangerous. And if the Chargers are able to stay on schedule, meaning that they get a nice yardage in the early downs, first and second down, and have third and shorts all day, because the running game is on schedule with those two, that opens up their offense and it makes it that much more difficult on the Steelers than to even know what's coming. So we got to control the run. Got to control the run. Um, but in doing so, be disciplined enough to make sure we're not giving up those obvious holes in the middle, which I'm not saying anything the Steelers defensive coaching staff doesn't already know, certainly. But, just for us folks, yeah, man, that's something to really look for. All right. Flipping it over to the other side of the ball real quick, and I'm not going to spend forever on them, but the Chargers defense has been very good so far. And in fact, I believe is ranked like right in front of us in most categories. Right now, again, um, they haven't exactly faced offenses that would overwhelm you, right? They went against the Raiders and they went against the Carolina Panthers, right? So you could, in your mind, skew those numbers or skew their productivity on defense, how you feel based based on the opponents that they faced so far, but yet and still you can't I mean, you play who you got in front of you, and those are still NFL teams, and they have, as a defensive unit, so far shined. So we can't take them lightly at all. And they got some serious players, particularly um, their edge rushers. Two of the best in the game to flat out with Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. Um, you know, different players certainly. You know, Bosa may be more your power guy, a little bigger, but certainly a huge threat, just like his brother over for San Fran. And Mac, since he come into the league, has been a dangerous pass rusher and has got that elite around the edge speed and got a nice bag of moves of his own. I mean, this dude has seen high double digit sacks in his past before. So, like I said, they got some very very dangerous edge rushers, a tandem very similar to ours. Now, of course, I consider our edge rushing tandem, right, to be the best, but they are up there, man. I mean, Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack are very, very dangerous indeed as a pass rushing tandem, and very solid against the run as well. So, and thus far, so far, the defense has really held up very well against the run. Like I said, against in most defensive categories, right above the Steelers. So we cannot underestimate them, and they're led by an excellent defensive coordinator in Jesse Minter. So, um, the first 2 weeks, the Chargers have only given up 13 points, right? Just ahead of the Steelers, who've only given up 16 points. Um, they also have been great against the run so far. Like I said, as a front altogether, they've really controlled the run. And again, I know the tendency is going to be to run and look at the competition they face, and that's valid. But again, those are NFL teams, the Panthers and the Raiders. Still, I mean, if you fall asleep on any given team, any given Sunday in the National Football League, and they can gas you, and they didn't. They shut them down so far. So, um, you know, that can't be ignored, and we can't sleep on their D, especially those edge rushers. If we give them the opportunity to tee off on our tackles, by the way, that hasn't been um, our strong suit. Now I'll flip it over now and talk just a little bit about the Steelers so far, and highlight some of the things that we need to take a look at, which is our tackle play. Um, you know, Dan Moore Jr. has overall, if you ask me, um, taken an upward trajectory throughout his career and gotten better. But that's relative because he's getting better from a point of really not being good to now being serviceable, like I would feel really good about having him as, your backup left tackle. You'd be like, man, well, at worst come to worst, we throw Dan Moore Jr. in there. He's serviceable. But he's been our starting left tackle. In my opinion, I think, and, far be it for me to try to act like I know more than the Steelers coaching staff, but I would have loved to have seen Broderick in the left tackle role, cemented in, probably starting, somewhere mid-season last year and maintaining through now, and just let him be settled into that position instead of switching back and forth. Even though he did a really good job last year at right tackle, left tackle is his more natural position. And I think that it would do him well to not be switching back and forth. That's just my personal opinion. And then that would also allow the same thing, for our new tackle to cement himself in, Troy Fautanu, and really become comfortable in his position, and maybe, work on their versatility a little bit later on after they're really cemented in their positions, just in case you ever need to utilize that line flexibility. I know that the Steelers really value having that flexibility among their line, being able to rotate their guys based on injury or need, or what they think might be more productive. And I get it. I understand that. I just feel like, you drafted very well at the tackle position 2 years in a row. Let those guys come in and be what you drafted them to be what they were already. Of course, saying that, Fautanu played probably more time at left tackle, but has shown that he probably would be a good and better right tackle, right? Especially for his build. Um, you know, Maybe not quite the long arms that you would like to see at the. He's a big enough guy. Don't get me wrong, but at left tackle, I just think that you're better leaving Broderick out there, in my opinion. Letting him develop into the best that he can be at left tackle, and the same thing said for Troy. And I think then you're good with your bookend tackles for the next 10 years potentially. That's just my humble opinion. But at any rate, those guys, those three guys, likely are who we're going to be seeing facing on the edges, having to face up against Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. So big matchup, and they really got to put on their big boy pads and be ready for a serious challenge this week, right? With that being said, I think the rest of our offensive line has really showed up very well. And a couple of plays last week, I would have liked Daniels to have held up a little bit better. But overall, I'm not worried about him. Certainly, he's proven himself to be one of our really solid pieces on the line. So, he was facing a load last week. That was a big dude. 99, I forget his name. But anyway, some of the other guys to look out for on the Chargers defense, I wanted to not be remiss in mentioning. Certainly, their safety, Derwin James, for years has been a top-notch player. and very versatile in terms of his ability to play the run and pass. So we got to be watching out for him. And the same to be said for their middle linebacker Denzel Perryman, also very versatile in against the run and the pass. Um, and then we can't forget the fact that they got Bud Dupree also chipping in some edge rushing for them. But Bud, I believe, is kind of banged up. I don't know exactly what his participation is for this game. We'll see. Um, so, um, just a couple of other quick notes, and I'm going to get out of here, folks. I do want us to be on the lookout for what happens in the trenches, particularly when the Steelers are on defense. You need, I think, to have a stalemate at least, or if not, in our favor slightly, from Benton versus Bozeman, right? And I feel good about that. And then certainly we need Cam and Larry Ogunjobi to maybe kind of give us a nice edge or really win out versus their guards. And I think that we could see that. And if we get a good push in those areas, that could really aid us a lot in shutting down their run. Okay, which is going to, again, be very important. Um, you know, they got a serious 1-2 punch once again in Gus Bus and Dobbins. So, whew, this is going to be a big one, man. This is going to be a big one. Look out for steady, you know, a very steady game plan from them. But I'll say this. This is why I'm hesitating. Jim Harbaugh, I think, is a little more conservative than John Harbaugh, but he's a Harbaugh. So we got to watch out for trick stuff. I'll just say trick stuff. Just in case. And that might be the last little wild card. But listen, thank you all. Once again, I hope that I got you prepared a little bit, man. This is exciting, a big, massive test for the Steelers. If they can come through and shine on this one and walk out, defend our home field and come out of this one 3-0, that's major. That's major. And certainly, I mean, if you believe in all the statistical probabilities and trends that we've seen in the past, teams that go 3-0 to start the season typically become playoff teams. Just throwing that out, that's out there for us. So yeah, man, this is a huge challenge, a big matchup for the Steelers, and a terrific opportunity for them to walk away 3-0, really be in the driver's seat in the division and in position to be staring at a nice pathway to the playoffs. All right? Man, Big King Sadiq, Worldwide Movement, peace, love, respect. Once again, Steelers Nation, thank you. And I'll be looking for y'all to stand up. Thank you for blending with me once again, right? For week 3 of Steelers game prep. Big King Sadiq, I'm out. Go Steelers!